You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Alright, so you're wondering, how do I listen to you guys live? How do I check it out? Well, good news, we stream every Wednesday, 9 p.m, over on Twitch. Nerddux, Nerddux, or Nerd to Know Media on YouTube or Twitch. That's how you're going to be able to catch us. Hope to see you in the live chat.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication. It's over 9,000!
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll! Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing memory. Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, hosted by Nerd to Know Media on Phoenix 92.5 FM. My name is Cian O'Callaghan, and with us are two wonderful guests from far-flung parts of Ireland. Kev, introduce yourself first.
It sounds like you introduced me. I'm here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here as always. And from the far-flung and mystic valleys of Carlingford, we have...
Hi, it's Mannequin Blue, back again.
Now,
Krusty Show, recording from a remote location.
Yes.
Yeah.
She has been kind enough to phone in from her vacation, which is very much appreciated. Without going into too much postcodes and things, how is it going?
It's going. It's like last week. We got here last week. Yes. Not the weekend just gone, the one before that. And I took the first week off. So like I literally brought half of my studio with me so I can work while I'm here. And we took the first week off, and now I'm getting back into somewhat of a routine, which is nice.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's an accomplishment, especially on holiday. How about you, Kev?
Yeah.
Yep. How about you, Kev, before we hop into the news? Anything mad to report before we get to the news?
The most mad thing to happen to me probably is the news in terms of relevant content, guys.
Yeah, we're going to start with relevant content this week and see if we can segue into madness. Usually we do it the other way round.
Yeah, but we're hitting the SEO right on the freeway right now. We are getting...
So, that's as good a segue as ever. Kev, would you like to tell us what your relevant content is?
Can we just do a new segment called Relevant Content where Cian just does that?
Oh, I plan to. This is my new bit. This is my new on it.
It's okay. We just repeat this show, except we ADR in everything else. My relevant content is... I watched on Netflix the new Bo Burnham special. And it is like, it's already probably like, I think it's number one on Netflix. So like, I presuming most people, except for obviously you two, have watched it. But it is truly a trip. The whole premise of it, it's a very off-kilter comedy special because obviously it was quarantined. It's not in front of a live audience. The entire thing is recorded in his one-room apartment over the course of the quarantine for the space of the year. And like the extent of it is you just watch this man with truly terrible mental illness just unravel across this thing. Like, but it's still very funny, and that's kind of the strangest part. Like, it is very much like it is acknowledging the fact that he is not doing okay, but still making jokes about it. Like,
I'm getting some strong Rod Gilbert vibes off this already.
It's so like it's hard to explain it. It's very strange, and like all the while it kind of cribs on like a lot of the jokes. Kind of like there's like a lot of the jokes are kind of about the destruction of the planet and late stage capitalism, but also like it kind of deconstructs the artistic process. It's so strange, but I can't help but feel like it is the most prescient piece of art.
Well, then
to come out recently.
Sorry to interrupt your flow, but can I ask for, say, hypothetically, if you were talking to two people who hadn't seen it, and indeed at least one person who hasn't seen anything Bo Burnham related, is this a good starting point?
I'd say it's a good standalone in a way.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the guy that got famous through Vine?
I don't think it was. I don't know if it was. He could have been through Vine. It was definitely YouTube.
Okay.
I know like Bo Burnham's written films by now.
Yeah. So actually, so then there's a little bit of backstory on this as well, which he mentions actually in the special, is that he's like an old school YouTuber, like more than 10 years ago when he was like 17 or something. Like he uploading like kind of comedy songs that were all right. They're a little bit dodgy nowadays with modern sensibilities, but like funny. And so like, that kind of propelled him, and he got very, very famous, and, kind of got famous enough to do like tours and that. But 5 years ago, I think it was, he actually had to stop doing live comedy altogether because he was just having full on anxiety and panic attacks on stage. Like his mental health was just not in it. He just had to stop. And I think, so I think across that 5 year break, he did a lot of writing, and I think he did, as far as I remember, I think his movie was 8th grade. Yeah. But so he mentions then in the special that, after a couple of years, he worked on himself. He really improved himself. He thinks he's back in a place to start doing live comedy again. And then the thing happened.
The event.
Please do not discuss the event.
Remain indoors.
So he does this thing, and again, like it's because he records it over the course of a year. He starts off being like, I'm gonna do this all in, it's gonna take as long as it takes, and I'm just gonna do this indoors special, and we'll just kind of figure it out as he goes along. And it really just hits the exact emotions I think everybody has felt over the past year. That's why I'm kind of saying I think it's probably the most like prescient piece of art to come out of this, because it is wild, unraveled, and all of us can kind of understand where he's coming from.
Oh my god!
Like as I said, I'd recommend it, but I'd recommend it because it is genuinely hilarious at points, but it is also grim, and definitely wouldn't be recommended for people suffering through mental illness at the moment. Like one of the things is it ends with the phone number for the US suicide hotline at the end, because he gets into it.
What you're saying then is have a stack of your favorite cartoons to play after.
Definitely.
And before
definitely.
And during.
Yeah, take cartoon breaks throughout.
What I will say is everyone should go and listen to, though. He's already uploaded onto YouTube. And actually, I think tomorrow when we're recording this, so when the show goes up, the entire, because it's a musical special as well. It's pretty much all songs because it's a musician. All the songs in the special, I think, are going up on an album on Spotify now as well. So you can kind of pick out some songs if you like as well. But there's one called Welcome to the Internet that is incredibly catchy and just is a pure dilution of just the internet as a concept. I Like he just repeating the line, "Can I interest you in anything?" all of the time. Just definitely not safe for work, but truly hilarious.
So you're not going to sing it for us now, no?
No, God, no.
On at 5. We're on
On
at
at
5.
We're on at 5, and also I think I'm hitting the point where I can't describe this anymore without literally breaking down jokes and just the poison of all comedy.
You just have to watch it.
You kind of just have to watch it. And the thing,
But with that
I
little
didn't.
disclaimer above it.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember, because I'd heard about it because everyone was talking about it. And at the time when I first heard about it, I knew it was something very, very dark and very cerebral. And I remember not being super into it. Listening to Welcome to the Internet was like, no, I'm going to watch this. This seems fantastic.
Well, actually, you brought up an interesting point, because how much content, because we've had a year now of, well, more than a year really, of this new world we're living in. And there hasn't been a huge amount of content about lockdown. Like Staged is the other big one that comes to mind. Have you guys watched that yet?
I watched the first season. I really, really liked it. Yeah.
I mean, we've probably talked about it on the show before, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's on Netflix. The first series is, and it's about David Tennant and Michael Sheen and their unfortunate families playing themselves as they try and rehearse a play so that it'll be ready when the lockdown ends. And they basically have a scripted, granted, but a sort of progressive mental and friendship breakdown as it goes on. And in the second series, they're trying to make this TV show of the first series, and their agent doesn't think they're popular enough and is trying to recast them with more famous people than themselves to play themselves. And if you can get through the weirdness of the premise, it's a really, really good indication of what living through lockdown is like, because it's all filmed on Zoom. It's all done just through people having conversations with laptops. They don't really cheat it at all. So I'd recommend that, especially if you're kind of just comedy fans in general, but especially because there's celebrities that always kind of punches things up a bit. But can you guys think of any other lockdown themed things that have come out in the past year that has really grabbed you, or even at all?
The only other thing I can think of, and I actually didn't watch it, but Dara absolutely raved about it, was that Zoom horror movie that came out, I think, at the start of quarantine. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah. I remember he was talking about that. It was all done entirely through Zoom.
But otherwise, I really can't think. See, I think it's, you can have things like Staged and Inside. I don't think a lot of people are going to try, I think, because I know a lot of people I follow doing shows are just continuing to make their shows in the limited capacity they can, but just, trying to not make it about the lockdown and the quarantine because they want that escapism. I'd say we'll probably only see a lot of stuff about it when we're past it.
Yeah, being in lockdown, you don't really want to be watching lockdown. You want to get away from it.
Well, that's a fair point. As Kev knows, I'm a ghoul that haunts the Eastern stockroom listening to audio things. And I accidentally stumbled into a recording of War of the Worlds and was going, they're all hiding from things. That's kind of oddly reminiscent. As you say, we could have a dearth of content themed around lockdown in about 5 years' time when it becomes kind of nostalgic and meaty and that kind of stuff. But you've kind of answered my question already, Katie, but do you think that there is currently an appetite for stories that kind of relate to this stuff? Because I know there was a huge reaction off that with Stage. Or do people just want to avoid it and pretend it's not happening in their media and get away from it as much as possible?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about pretending it's not happening. I don't think it's necessarily that people are trying to pretend it's not happening. It's kind of more just it's the reality, and it's because of the nature of what it is, where you have to stay inside and look at the same four walls. And, if you live with other people, you're talking to the same people all the time. It's kind of more, you just don't want to be surrounded by more of that. You just want like a break, something a little different. You know, maybe you want to go to Carlingford for a month.
Just to pick a random example,
Yeah,
off
just
the top of your
just to
head.
pull an example out of the air.
Maybe
you know?
maybe you just want to chat to some sheep.
Not that you would know. But like, yeah, no, like speaking from my own experiences, I mentioned this on the episode of the Game Corner I was on way back at the start of this whole thing. That when everything kicked off, we all, like, everywhere was closed, nobody was working the entire time. And like this was like the initial, we don't know what's going on. Everybody stay indoors. I spent the better part of a month every day playing Percile and loving it because it gave me a steady routine
Yeah.
because of the day-to-day nature and cycle of that game. Was like I got to simulate getting up, going out, seeing people, building relationships. I can't emphasize just how much I think that helped me cope.
I did it with Animal Crossing. Every day, watering the plants, talking to the neighbors, exploring an island because you can go outside.
So yeah, I think
I did it with an infant. Every day they wake up, they say, "Dada, feed me," and I'm like, "What again?"
The most immersive game.
You just ate yesterday.
Oh, I told, not to go too far into personal stuff, but I told Kev this the other day in work. The most chilling 4 words you can hear at 1:45 in the morning when you think you're asleep is, "Dada, I awake now."
Oh.
Not even crying, not just like, "Wah," not just, oh, great to see you. Just,
yeah,
I'm up.
I'm awake
Dance.
now. If it makes you feel any better, not that I'm comparing, not that I'm going to compare your child to a cat, but there is a cat here that likes to go up and down the hall just screaming. Like,
she is going to compare your child to a cat.
Oh no, Prim has discovered trains. She, at any time of day or night, she'll run up and down our surprisingly effective acoustic hallway going, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." She's going to do it now that I've done it, I guarantee it. But okay, so not to kind of dwell on the lockdown too much, but I think we're now reaching a stage where we kind of, obviously we've talked about media in general, but like, I think we're going to have to start kind of putting this in a context, and like, because we're hopefully coming out the other side of it. And do you think there's going to be a lot of TV shows and things about that to come, or is it just still kind of too soon yet?
I suspect so. I think there is always people out there that are looking for the cash in. I think there's some big wigs that are like, yeah, the people want their pandemic stories.
They want their
zooms. I can't tell you how many copies of bleeding Albert Camus' Plague I sold. So like, people want it, and people are willing, and people want to get money from it. So there will be. It's more a matter of quality.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get some more kind of zombie movies or something to that extent. But in terms of general media, I'd say they'll just kind of go back to the way things were. They'll be like, life's normal again. Let's do shows about normal things. Let's do sitcoms and all that kind of stuff. But I'd say we will probably get some new zombie franchises or something.
Yeah, you probably I know there's been, because we kind of talked about this before we started recording, an explosion of like wholesome reality TV, and I'm tipping my hat towards you, Mannequin Blue. Was there a wholesome game show reality thing that you watched recently that I know was very popular in my house? So,
you are teeing me up right now.
Yes,
you are just
slightly subtlety.
Yeah, you are setting me up to reveal
nudge.
this guilty pleasure of mine. Because I don't generally watch these kind of shows, but it was one of those things that when we got here, they were watching it, and I got really, really into it, and I'm not even sorry. But yeah, it was super wholesome. It was nice. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about The Masked Dancer. Yeah. Which is to explain it to you as if you're 5 and you don't know what it is.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So it was basically a bunch of celebrities of different levels of fame, I guess, because don't forget, this is a UK show and we're still kind of coming out of lockdown. So they're not going to have like big name American people or anything. But it was basically celebrities in mascot costumes doing dance routine, like full mascot costumes, doing dance routines for a panel of judges who then had to figure out who they were.
Okay, because this is the ultimate. I wander through the room, see a giant sheep dancing on a stage with Jonathan Ross looking on impressed and going, huh.
Yeah.
So
who is it? Who could it be?
Explain to me both. I mean, you've kind of touched on it. So how does it work? Is it the best dancer wins, or do the judges win by figuring out who they are? Like,
yeah,
there's so many. Like, I asked Mum to explain it to me, and my head started rolling.
Well,
so help
whoever
me out
wins, we lose.
It kind of defies explanation because, like, yeah, the judges have to guess who's under the mask, but even if they get it right, the person who is in the costume doesn't reveal who they are until they get eliminated from the competition. So basically it's based on not necessarily who's the best dancer, but like, so there's an audience vote part where they had like a Zoom audience. So they would vote for who they wanted to send home. And then, you know, they might have to do a dance off between them. And then the one who the judges vote gets to stay. So it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword as well, because even though that person is going home, you find out who they are. Whereas the other person, you know, they might get through to the next stage of the competition, but then you don't know who they are, so you still have to wait and see.
Oh, I see. So could someone get voted out because people want to find out who they are rather than their merits as a dancer? Is that it? Or?
Well, they could, but I think that would be a waste because like there was one character which was Rubber Chicken. And it was a guy in a rubber chicken costume, right? But he was so in character. Like the whole time he was like pecking around and flapping his arms. Like he was brilliant. And he wasn't the strongest dancer, but I genuinely didn't want him to go home because I just wanted to keep watching him because he was just so entertaining. And then, you know, he went home fairly early. And it turned out that it was Eddie the Eagle of all people. It was like, because I thought everyone was guessing Bill Bailey. And I thought it could be Bill Bailey because this seems like a show he would do and get really into. And then, you know, the mask came off and it was like, hi, I'm an Olympic skier.
Okay, so like if I'm understanding this correctly, you kind of invest in the character.
Yeah.
And then I suppose it's bittersweet because you find out who they are once they go.
Yeah, and then you don't see them anymore.
Has there ever been a case, now obviously I'm talking broadly, but like, has there ever been a case where you were disappointed that your star chicken was a celebrity you didn't like, or even vice versa? Yeah,
I wouldn't say that it was a celebrity that I didn't like. It was more a case of when the celebrities were revealed, most of them, I had no idea who they were.
Well, that was what I was going to touch on. Like, you know, it's, are these people we would know? Because when something's called celebrity, you know,
yeah, it was. I think it was a very loose stretch of the term.
Okay.
Now, a lot of the people would have been there was a few that would have been like judges on other shows. So they had like one of the judges of Dancing with the Stars or something was one of the mascots. And then other people were like kind of Olympic athletes, and there was one or two actors, you know, that kind of thing. But I think out of everyone that I saw, there was only one person that I actually recognized. And even then, she was kind of more of a B-list movie star. Okay. Whereas everyone else was kind of like soap opera stars or Olympic athletes or whatever it was. So, and not that they weren't good. I had no idea who they were. So when it was revealed, it was like, okay.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the catch, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously, not every celebrity is going to want to do a celebrity show. But add into that, you have to have celebrities who are good-natured enough to not have their face shown and be a dancing chicken.
Yeah,
there's a lot of hurdles.
I think it came at the right time as well, because it's based on another show of the same vein called The Masked Singer. that they did in America, and they
I've
had
seen
like a
that
lot
one,
of
yeah.
You've seen that one, yeah. So they had a lot of really big name people coming in and singing in costumes. But the one that they did in the UK, it came at the right time, I think, because when they asked the celebrities what made you want to do the show, most of them said, "Oh, I was just bored in lockdown and I wanted to get out of the house." So it kind of came at the right time. Do you know what I mean? If we hadn't been in a pandemic and a lockdown, the show might not have happened.
That's it, because like I compare it to the singing one, because if you hear someone singing, you're hearing their voice, and you can make a brave stab at who they are, even if they're dressed as a goose or something. But dancing, that's a wee bit more abstract unless you're incredibly familiar with the way they walk or something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of it was that. I think it was Davina or somebody said it at one point. So I can't remember his name, but I think he's a judge on Dancing with the Stars, but he was dressed as a Knickerbocker Glory and like dancing in high heels as well, which is very impressive. But she was watching him, and it was only, I think, towards the end when he walked off stage that she went, "I know that walk." You know what I mean? So, and it was so funny because the way they would do it was like before the character would come out, they'd do a little video that had like clues in it and stuff. And it was all very obscure. Like if you didn't know these people, you wouldn't know what the clues even were because they were really well hidden. And so it's funny that they had that whole thing of, the clue packages and even in the dance routines, there would be maybe a sign on the background or something that was another clue. And it was only when he walked off stage that she went, "I know that walk. I know who you are."
Okay, well, that's quite a ringing endorsement. Kev, you've had a bemused look on your face silently for the past 10 minutes.
Okay, I mentioned at the start of the show that I have literally no experience with this. That is slightly false because this entire time I just remembered a clip from what I'm assuming was probably The Masked Singer, because I think it was the US version that rocked around Twitter for a while. And it was the reveal of one of them where they pulled the mask off and there was nothing. And it's the most anticipated thing. And then from out of the mask comes Kermit the Frog and everyone loses their goddamn minds. And it's just, I think Ken Jeong was one of the judges. That's why I'm assuming it was the American one. But it was just a clip that just circulated for ages. It's just, it was just Kermit propping out.
How does that, with the size of the dancer? No,
it is a gimmick. There's no way he would be actually in there as a puppet within a mascot.
As I said, I only saw the reveal. Context is lost on me. This is literally my only experience in this show.
I mean, there is kind of a lockdown connection because, I mean, there have been friends I've made over the course of the last year for whom I don't recognize them when they take off their half masks because my image of the bottom of their face is completely different to what I assumed it would be.
Who are you under the mask?
That's just
God,
it.
Don't have a beard. I'm not going to be able to do with this if you have a beard.
Or like a really unfortunate tattoo or something. Oh, no. Well, I've invested 9 months in this.
Oh, God.
Yes. I don't want to be your friend anymore. I've seen your face and it's not what I expected.
All lockdown's over. Would you mind just actually just keeping it on?
Is this what internet pen pals feel like? When they meet in person?
Oh, that's some retro type internet pen pals on MSN boards.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was trying to be wholesome about it. I didn't want to go down a catfish route.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, speaking of things that have become weirdly successful over the lockdown that also happen to be somewhat reality shows. Have you guys watched Taskmaster yet?
Yes.
No.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I think in terms of anything reality show, I need to clarify that I do not have like a public TV connection.
Oh no, you can watch this online.
I still will not.
But Kev, Greg Davies, who hosts it, has the most Kev energy
should we
I've ever seen in a person
like
that wasn't 5? You.
Please explain it to me like I'm 5.
Okay, so Taskmaster is basically, in a nutshell, you get a bunch of comedians. What is it, like 5 or 6 comedians,
5.
something like that? 5 comedians. They get together. They stay in a house for an amount of time.
Not
and
in like a Big Brother way.
Not in a Big Brother way. No, there is a Taskmaster house. And they basically get given really ridiculous menial tasks to do. And, it might be you have to do it in a certain amount of time or in a certain way or like ridiculous tasks that you would never even think of. So, for example, they might go into a room and there's a watermelon on the table and they're told, okay, you have to, eat as much watermelon as possible without using your hands or something like that. Like, it's totally ridiculous. And then at the end, the winner wins the stupidest, like basically they all have to bring in a stupid object and whoever wins all of the stupid objects. Like it is pointless television and I love it so much.
Okay. Oh, it's incredibly addictive. Like, yeah, as Katie indicated, there's 5 of them and at the start of every episode, they have a theme around bringing in the best objects of a certain kind. So it can be like the object with the strangest story behind it. It can be the weirdest drawing of you that's ever been done. It can be the rarest thing you have. And whoever kind of brings in the best one gets points, but then whoever wins the episode at the end gets to bring all of these random things home, which
are not items that you would want to win, by the way.
No. I think, to be fair, I think one of them did win an entire kitchen set and then like a like one of those like tents that you can grow plants in. But then also people have won like, a cat skeleton, their dad's garden gate,
a spoon that Mike Wozniak whittled himself.
Yeah. Like an obscure recording, or like sometimes it'll be like, objects that are blue. Like,
yeah.
Don't know. Oh, actually no. Back way in season 2. The best dinner guest. You get to go with the best dinner guest if you win. And it included like one of the contestants' sister, a Labrador, like a cutout of someone. Like, it seems very structured but it's also each comedian puts their personality into it. So,
it is pointless television.
Okay, like, this does sound completely wonderful. Did you say it was on Netflix?
No, it's on all 4, which you can download for free.
Yeah. And I'm realizing I have no right to judge people watching their reality TV show, because I stayed up until 4 a.m. the day Netflix uploaded. It's called Blown Away, but it essentially is Netflix. It is essentially America's Best Glassblower.
Oh, I've heard about that. I heard it's not that great though.
It wasn't, but I watched all of it. For some reason, I was just in a mood that evening, and I was transfixed because
take us on a journey.
I don't even know how much, because again, it's not good television. It is literally, it's just a glass blowing competition.
I love those competition kind of shows though.
And the thing is, it starts, I think, with it was 8 or 10 people. And the first few people that got cut were really chill, and we're the nicest people. And we're like, oh man, it is what it is. That's the competition. Bye guys, and everyone's happy. So by the time you get to the last 3, it's all these very intense people who really like glass blowing. It is not a game to these people. It's
it makes a difference though. That sounds quite nice, because I've been watching a lot of Ink Master lately, and those people are just horrible. Like tattoo artists. If you only have experience of tattoo artists from that show, they just seem really horrible because they're just always screaming at each other. And it's like, this is an art competition. Why are you all screaming at each other?
Because they all want to be Gordon Ramsay. You want a Gordon Ramsay that draws on you.
Yeah. Oh, it's just awful though. Yeah, no, this glass thing sounds kind of slightly wholesome.
If you want something just literally, if you want just noise in the background, I think it was called Blown Away.
I will look into
it's on Netflix.
Noise in the background is definitely the title of this episode on Spotify.
Has anybody watched Forged in Fire?
No, I've heard about that one though. That's it's a forging.
It's the blacksmith one. But they have this guy who's like a master blacksmith, and he does kill tests so any weapons that they make, they'll give him like a pig carcass or something, and he's like swinging a sword into it, you know. But he always does this thing, and like you wait for him. It's kind of like say the line, because he always goes, "It will kill," and it's like, yeah, he said the line, and like I literally watch compilations of him just saying, "It will kill." So good.
God damn.
Okay. Well, then, since we're sticking with the theme, have you guys watched The Great British Sewing Bee?
Yes, I saw the finale of it the other day. I haven't seen all of it.
It's on currently as we are recording this.
Not the finale. What was it? The one where they did Saturday Night Fever or Showgirls or whatever it was. I don't know why I said finale. I got excited.
It's okay. It's a very, you know what?
It was the quarterfinal. That's what it was.
Please explain The Great British Sewing Bee to us, Mannequin Blue.
Well, I mean, I've only seen one episode, but it's basically all of those shows that we've been talking about, but for sewing.
Well, let's go into a bit more detail. It's for me and Stevie. It's helping us with our cosplay drought, as it were.
Ooh,
because
nice.
like it's basically what it sounds like. It's your fix if you miss the Great British Bake Off.
And the professional Bake Off isn't as good.
Yeah.
I think that's running now, and I watched one episode and I went, "This isn't fun. Like, where's all the fun?"
This isn't the Great British one, is it? Or
yeah, but it's the professionals. So it's
I
not
like those ones though. You invest in characters, like.
Well, I've only seen like part of one episode, so it's like I like the one with what's his name, Paul and Prue. I like those ones.
Right.
The professional one is like completely different judges. It's like a French guy and a Chinese woman, and you know they're fine, but they're very, very cruel.
In that case, I think we must be watching two very different shows, because I watched the one with Sandy Toksvig, and like
that's the amateur one.
Oh my God, how many tiers, no pun intended, are there to this baking?
Yeah, so apparently
franchise?
there's, what I learned last week is that there's one that's actually called the Professional Bake Off. And they come in teams, from what I've seen anyway, is that it's in pairs, and these people actually run bakeries, and they have to come in and impress these two really they're just like really harsh, critical judges who will tell them every single thing is wrong. Like if they have to make a cake of a certain size, this woman will come in with a ruler and like measure the cake to make sure it's the right size. And yeah, it's really tough watch.
Well then, you and I must be watching very different shows, because what's funny is like around the time that me and my fiance started going out, she introduced me to this, and I introduced her to The Apprentice, the UK one. And the thing about the UK Apprentice is that most of the characters are reprehensible, because that is what people in business are like on TV.
Yeah.
And when they go, like, you're kind of like, good riddance, or okay, fair enough. The Great British Bake Off, everyone's incredibly nice.
Yeah.
And you want none of them to go, which makes it agonizing. The more supportive they are of each other, you're just like, be slightly less nice to each other to make it like easier on me. And they never give way.
What I actually quite enjoyed in the same vein as well when it was on? The Celebrity Bake Off. I thought that was really wholesome.
That'd be the brand then. Yeah, I've seen the Dairy Girls one as well. Like, it's just everyone.
I have seen clips of the Dairy Girls Bake Off, and the actress played the nun just could not keep it together the entire time. It's so funny.
Yeah, so I mean, not to kind of put a bow on this, as we've sort of gone down a rabbit hole, there does seem to be a greater appetite for like wholesome reality shows that aren't about conflict and that bring people together. Like even with Taskmaster's most recent series, they're still 2 meters apart. Mm-hmm. But as opposed to like the Bo Burnham example, there does seem to be this want of just like celebrations of nice things and escape and just
silly content.
Yeah, and that could be. Go on, Kev.
No, sorry. As we were kind of wrapping this up, I didn't want to cut across you, but I also just remembered that there is actual news as well.
What? Relevant content.
Relevant content. because I loved listening to you guys, but I also just wanted to like scroll Twitter for a little bit idly. And I just remembered that Netflix are actually currently in the middle of doing their Geeked Week live streams. Do you guys know anything about this?
No.
Essentially, Netflix are doing basically their own Comic-Con thing at the moment. So it's a lot of kind of homegrown, like it's a lot of like announcements for like a lot of the kind of the more nerdy Netflix series.
Right.
Hey, Netflix. Hey, Netflix. We do nerdy content.
Yeah.
Hit us up. And so like it started on Monday. I think stuff's still going through on Friday. But so far there have been some minor announcements. Like I think it's like a lot of it. I haven't actually watched any of it myself. I've only been catching the announcements, but it's a lot of live streams of like kind of casts doing kind of playing games, doing table reads, just like that. And then some kind of announcements coming out about shows. Some of the big announcements that have come out from it. So Shadow and Bone got announced for its second season. In no duh news. Of course, I think they just had to wait until they had an event on because everyone knew this was getting a second season because it is stellar and needs it. The other big piece of news, they announced still no date on Umbrella Academy season 3, but they've put out the episode titles. What else have we got? The awesome news that I am delighted about is, do you guys... I don't know if you guys knew about this. Netflix are doing a live action Cowboy Bebop adaptation.
I thought that got forgotten about.
It's been, I think like it got late. It got hit with a lot of setbacks, COVID being one of them. And also I think the guy playing Spike is John Cho from Star Trek and Harold and Kumar. He got injured on set as well. So that pushed the production back months, but apparently it's coming out later this year. But the big news is that they've got Yoko Kanno doing the soundtrack to this as well. She was the original composer to the original anime series.
Oh,
nice.
I thought they were just going to use the score again. Okay.
No, and she's doing original music. So they might use some stuff, but like she's doing a whole OST as well.
And there'll probably be some remastered.
Probably, so truly it doesn't matter if the show is good or not. We're at least going to get it.
A jam.
An absolutely stellar album out of this.
I'm very excited for that. You know what, actually, do you want to tell us about Shadow and Bone? Because that's something we actually haven't covered on the show yet, and everyone keeps talking about it.
Shadow and Bone is... okay. Where do I start? Shadow and Bone is... So it's a Netflix fantasy series based off a YA novel series. And it's very... I don't want to just get into a plot synopsis because that's just going to throw a lot of words at you that mean nothing. Like dartling and fold and a lot of Russian words. It's based in a very kind of fantasy Russia. But the basic thing is that there is a giant dark shroud separating this continent. And a lot of the population, very Avatar, have the powers to manipulate some elements. Some people can manipulate fire, some people can manipulate wind. Very Avatar, very bending. And the whole story follows a girl who it turns out is a sun summoner who can summon light and the sun and heat. And essentially prophecy in show goes that the sun summoner can tear down the dark fold and rejoin the land. Again, very, very Avatar. But it does so, like... I'm trying to think of where to start with just kind of what I love about this series. Because it is... Like, there's so much I love there. That's the thing.
Well, I want to give a shout out to local talent, as it were. Danielle Galligan, who plays Nina Zenick in it. I've met her a few times because she's from that Lear alumni crowd. She's fantastic. And it's great. It's always great to see kind of Irish actors breaking into these big, big franchises. Because, like, you know, quite often it's a lot of the same faces, even in Netflix type things, which, you know, encompasses the world. So I want to give a shout out to an Irish person succeeding there, you know. And
she's great in it. I think actually it's a lot of new faces. I like most of the cast I don't recognize, and they're all absolutely stellar. The standout, though, of course, is Ben Barnes. As,
yeah, he was the only one I knew. He's the Prince Caspian guy, isn't he?
He was Prince Caspian in the Narnia movie, which is way better than I remembered it being. We watched that recently enough. But yeah, so he plays the General Kerrigan, the Black General of the army, who controls darkness, and it's so rad. But yeah, like the show, it does a great. I'm really stuck on how actually to appraise it, because there's so many moving parts in it, and like, okay, the things that really jump out at me is the representation across the board is stellar in terms of racial diversity in the cast, queer relationships in the show, and disabled representation. One of the main characters has a leg injury, and it truly doesn't impede him. And it's just stellar to see loads of stuff like that just well done in the show. And just like, I think, like, really, I've got to say, like, if you have any interest in fantasy, like, to be honest, like, kind of fantasy from Game of Thrones to Avatar: The Last Airbender, absolutely check it out. It's truly fantastic.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. List. Is it like, I mean, I know obviously Game of Thrones kind of burnt out at the end, but is it that good on a kind of early Game of Thrones level? Like,
slightly different, because it doesn't, like, it's not quite as adult as Game of Thrones, but like, I'd say about that. I think in rambling terms, yes. Like, okay. So like that first season is so engaging, and living with somebody who has now read all of the books, apparently it is also an incredible adaptation, because I know I haven't read them. They're on my list now, but
are they actually finished?
Yes-ish, because she's one of these authors where there's the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is 3 books that are done, which is the kind of the core of what the series is based off of. But she's an author that is writing books in that universe, and apparently a lot of different details from all the other books are kind of folding in and expanding on each other.
That's what I was going to ask, because I read Six of Crows for a book club, which I understand is not part of that trilogy, but is in that universe, and that was enjoyable. I didn't actually know that was part of a franchise, but it was just fantasy bank heist. Love it. Like, really original concept. Like,
sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm nearly done now. It's just, you and I work in a bookshop, Kev. The YA genre has very specific tropes. And it was genuinely refreshing to see someone kind of in that field, still writing appropriately to that style, but really going full on Terry Pratchett levels of creative with all the things they were throwing, concepts they were throwing in,
Yeah, like it's incredibly creative. As I said, it's like the way I'm describing it sounds very derivative of stuff like Avatar. It stands well on its own. I'm using them as jumping off points to kind of compare to in terms of recommending, but like it truly stands on its own. You don't think, oh, that's like that when you're watching it, right? But yeah, just kind of jumping back to the books and that I like the fact that it is based, like, it has the core of this trilogy that's already made, but going forward, there's so many different avenues that it doesn't have to just be 3 seasons, a season, a book. It can expand from there and do like the Six of Crows, King of Scars duology, and just kind of keep going, and probably go, off rails later on if it needs to. It seems like there's a lot of room to really jump on to go off with it. It's fantastic. Like, I can't recommend it enough.
Well, then props to, like, it's an original franchise. There's not a lot of original franchises anymore. It's all kind of recreations or clones or all that kind of stuff. Like, so actually, I'm really thrilled to check it out now. I might do after we're done recording. Can I recommend one thing that will annoy Dara right before we wrap?
Please.
Always.
Have you guys seen The Bad Batch yet?
No.
Is that the movie with Jason Momoa?
No. The Bad Batch is the most recent Star Wars series.
Okay, so there's 2 Bad Batches then, because the one I've seen was like Jason Momoa was a cannibal.
Oh my God, you're going to have to tell us about that first.
We're going to put a pin in that.
You do yours. We'll circle back around.
No, don't you dare not tell us about that.
No,
How
I just
put
need
the
to. I
words
need to actually
Jason
double check.
Momoa cannibal on the table and expect anything I say to hold anyone's interest.
No.
I just need to check that it's actually a thing because I've been wrong about things in the past. So you do your thing and we'll circle back to it.
We get Dara's goat first, then we go to this.
Oh my God, you've just torpedoed me in the worst way possible. But
sorry,
okay.
I just actually small pin.
Yeah.
Sorry, I knew there was something else on this Netflix thing. They've also done a small behind the scenes teaser of their Sandman series that shows a little bit
Oh
off
yes,
that
the cast of that's looking really good. Yeah.
Sorry, just I spotted that again there, and I knew there was something else.
Well, actually, let's segue into that because, we spent a lot of time talking about sewing in this episode. So, the Neil Gaiman adaptations have been a tiny bit hit and miss. Like, I mean, do you guys have particularly high hopes for this series, or do you have any feelings about it in general?
I never read Sandman, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all people with your graphic
I haven't
novels
either.
and things.
It never. It seemed very dense to get into, and trades are expensive. So unless I find it somewhere digitally, I probably won't jump onto it for a while.
Or
I've heard
who has them,
or a friend who has them. We'll talk later.
Okay.
I've heard about it, and it sounds it sounds great. Like Gaiman's writing is stellar, and apparently Sandman is like his magnum opus.
Oh, it is.
But yeah, so like from what obviously like the what they're showing off is very early development. Like they've only just announced the cast, but it's just kind of a lot of it's some behind the scenes on just some of the sets, which look to be a very practical heavy, which is always cool. And just kind of talking about and just kind of the cat and some little snippets from like the main cast, like the guy who's playing
Dream.
The guy who's playing Dream. I cannot remember his name. He's a young actor. And Gwendolyn Christie, who's playing Lucifer, just talking about how they're just massive fans of the comic and just, want to be involved and really want this to be as good as it can. And just at least some of like again, it's between all we got really shown was like the concept and then some of the sets, but like it looks like they're definitely putting a lot of effort into it, which I'm glad to see.
Well, that is true. I must confess, I'm slightly nervous. I'm alone in this, but I was really let down by the Prime Video's American Gods. That felt really, really shallow.
I saw parts of it and I just couldn't get into it.
No? Were you a fan of the book or?
Well, no, I haven't. I can't say I've even read the book, but the show itself, I don't know, it just felt kind of forced. It's
not to dwell too much on it, but American Gods is a very, for lack of a better word, subtle book. It's basically a road trip around America where everywhere they stop, they encounter some sort of forgotten god. And in the logic of the universe, if people stop believing in you, the god loses power. So there's a lot of kind of dense details. And the TV show was a bit big and obvious. It definitely had its good traits, like your woman from the X-Files playing the embodiment of media, like as David Bowie 1 minute, Marilyn Monroe the next. That was great, but like it felt also incredibly shallow and obvious. Like, if the example I always go to is there's an opening segment about Vikings and someone steps off a boat into America and gets killed, but he doesn't just get killed with an arrow. Every single inch of his body is covered impossibly in arrows, and he explodes into a river of blood and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's like if you had a setting for violence and language and all kind of stuff, everything was just set.
All right, guys, gonna have to leave it there. Thanks very much for everyone who's listening on Phoenix 92.5 FM. We do appreciate it. But if you want to get the rest of this show, go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com. What are you waiting for? Go right now. nerdtoknowmedia.com is where you can find the rest of the show. Countless shows. We have shows pretty much on everything. It's where you're going to find them first. Tons of wrestling shows, nerd shows, everything that you could possibly want is over on Nerd to Know Media right now. nerdtoknowmedia.com, of course, if you would rather the visual version. Nerd to Know Media on YouTube. We're not hard to find at all. So we'll see you next time here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. Check out the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM every Tuesday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course over on nerdtoknowmedia.com, the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Welcome to Overtime here on Nerd to Know Media.
River of blood and all that kind of stuff. It's like if you had a setting for violence and language and all kind of stuff, everything was just set to the loudest setting, and that made it really hard to engage with. Like,
I have to counterpoint though, because you say that gaming adaptations are hit and miss. Off the top of my head, Coraline, Stardust, and Good Omens. Obviously, Good Omens, you could argue, is more Pratchett than gaming, but involved. All three are incredible, as standalones and as adaptations. So I think there is promise for it. I think I'm going into it obviously not having read it, so I don't really have expectations. So just as long as it's not cheap and shallow, I probably will. I hope to enjoy it. I'm sure there'll be people out there that have almost overblown expectations, because I know it is such a well-loved property. But it looks, at least, obviously it's hard to say from marketing material, but it looks like they're really putting the effort in, and it seems like they just kind of understand that there's a lot riding on this.
I'll give you the two examples that kind of countermand that, which were, as I mentioned, American Gods. And have you heard of How to Talk to Girls at Parties?
No.
Oh.
It's a short story of Neil Gaiman's that got adapted into a wonderful graphic novel by Fabio Moon, then got adapted into a bizarre full-length feature film about aliens and 80s stuff and all. I'm going to get the cast now, but I've never seen so many 1-star reviews as I have with this one. And I just my heart goes out to Neil Gaiman, who because now and again, these projects will happen for something he wrote 20 years ago. And he'll have to kind of, isn't it wonderful? And then, it has Elle Fanning, Nicole Kidman, Matt Lucas, really, really big cast, but just absolutely bizarre. And then the other kind of middle ground of those examples is there was a Neverwhere TV show before there was a book, which is bizarre because he was writing the book while he was writing the TV show. And according to him, they kept changing things. And the director just said, all right, if you don't like it, do it differently in your book. And people remember the book, and people don't remember the TV show, even though it has Peter Capaldi in it. If you're bored and on YouTube, it's mostly up there.
That sounds just strange. It sounds like the bad ending to what happened with Akira. For those of you that don't know, Akira, the critically acclaimed anime movie and manga series by Katsuhiro Otomo, landmark foundational title. After he released the first volume of Akira, which was also being published weekly, he got a movie adaptation, and essentially developed the movie the same time he was writing the series.
Right.
And he was heavily involved in both. Like, obviously, he wrote and drew the entire manga on his own, but he was a main producer on the film. So they're two series that essentially have, or two projects that have essentially the same plot that just take wildly different swings at it. Because he hadn't even finished the manga by the time the film wrapped. So like, it's this kind of weird thing where the film influenced the manga, even though the manga had come first. Again, weird kind of stuff like that.
Well, you get that now and again, though. Like the Scott Pilgrim film went out before that series finished, and kind of has to, which is why two of the X's kind of get merged into one and that kind of stuff. Or like, or just to kind of go by adaptations in Eason's, whatever the motto of Eason's is. We are currently selling the Evangelion manga, and that was one that came after the TV show, but it has little luxuries like explaining things and filling in plot holes.
You don't watch Evangelion to get things explained to you. You watch it to be sad and not know why.
I always understood it as mech suits and boobs.
Yeah, it's that as well, but also...
But they're 14, though.
Yeah, but also the terrible realization that nothing in life is fair. Also, you're a god and you just doom the earth.
It happens.
Just to save you watching 25 odd episodes in a film.
It's a Sunday.
All right, that seems as good a time as any to segue. Jason Momoa, cannibal.
Katie, I think I'm loosely timing this. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, so I haven't seen the entire movie, but I've looked it up, and it is a real movie, and it's called The Bad Batch.
Right.
And apparently, obviously Jason Momoa is like the leader of the cannibals, but the way they do it is they don't kill people to eat them. So what they do is they basically have these people like chained up in their compound, and every so often they just come in and like lop off a leg or an arm, and kind of tourniquet the wound, and then they're like, okay, we'll be back later for the rest of you, kind of thing.
Very casual, like that.
Really bizarre. But apparently, apart from Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey are also in it.
What?
And a bunch of other celebrities. But it's gotten very terrible reviews.
Even better.
So I think I need to actually
I don't want
sit
to
down
film
and
like
watch
this
the
to
whole
be
thing.
good. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but it is called The Bad Batch. So I didn't dream that.
Hold on, was it only 2016?
Yeah, it was like 2016, 2017.
So this is post Aquaman casting.
Yeah,
Jesus.
This is post John Wick Keanu.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a leap of faith and say this has been sat on the shelf since 2011, and when one of them got famous, it suddenly got rushed out the door because there's no way you could get these people post John Wick.
As far as I'm aware, Jim Carrey's character, now I haven't seen the entire movie, but apparently I have seen his character and you never even know it's him. Because you don't see his face. So he's basically this guy who out of nowhere, he's like, so one of the girls who was captured by the cannibals somehow, and they took her arm and her leg, and then she escapes on a skateboard on her back, like lying on her back on a skateboard, and somehow rolls herself out of the compound. And then Jim Carrey finds her and puts her in a trolley and like wheels her to another place. And
are you sure this exists?
This is it's on Netflix.
I would like to point out that looking it up for myself, the first listing on Google is not all the details of the movie. It is in fact a shop link to buy a pop culture graphic poster of the movie. So with that, this has been Nerd to Know Basis.
Are you kidding? Are we out of time?
I think we're at time.
Well, sugar. Now I can't review The Bad Batch, the proper one.
Well, we'll have to do a screening of both, I think, and compare.
This is exactly for Dara. We almost get to Star Wars and then we talk cannibals. Dara, this goes out to you. Enjoy the edit. I'm veering this bus off.
Why did no one ring the on at 5 bell? when we started talking about hacking limbs off.
Cian, where can people find you?
Hiding under my windowsill, apparently. And that's all I'll say for this week.
And Katie, have you anything to plug for the good people?
So doing it for the exposure is still on hiatus at the moment, which is understandable seeing as I'm in Carlingford. But I am still working away on lots of goodies for Acutely Morbid and for New Wolf Studios. So check us out on Instagram and buy lots of stuff, please and thank you.
Excellent. Well, listen, this has been Nerd to Know Basis, and we will see you all next week. Bye.
Please beware of Jason Momoa eating you. Bye.
Constant danger.
Constant danger. Watch Taskmaster. Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.